Thanks very much. And thank you, Lisa, for that introduction, and good morning, everyone. I wanted to say thank you to BCS and Dharma for providing me with this opportunity to talk about Ofwat's thinking on open data. I've managed to join a couple of the sessions this week and have found them really, really interesting and good to see progress across different sectors and also where the different sectors are at. I wanted to start this morning by providing an overview of the water sector and to Ofwat, as I think this is an important basis for understanding Ofwat's approach to open data. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time at the start of this presentation just to give you an overview of the sector and our role. And I will then set out the work that we've been doing to develop our approach to open data. So Ofwat is the economic regulator for the water industry in England and Wales. We were established in 1989 when the water and sewerage sector in England and Wales was privatised. We set the price for water, incentivised company to deliver on outcomes for customers, society, and the environment, as well as enabling the development of new and existing markets where they can bring the biggest benefits to customers. So we have a range of tools that we use to deliver our functions, from price setting to enforcement to policy development. We also work closely with many other organisations. This includes, but it's not limited to, the other regulators of the water sector, including the Drinking Water Inspectorate and the Environment Agency. Water companies serve over 50 million people in England and Wales, with responsibilities for delivering safe and clean water and wastewater services for customers. The majority of household customers are served by the 17 incumbent regional monopoly companies. This means that household customers are not able to choose which company supplies their water and sewage services. In addition to these regional monopolies, there are 8 new appointees and variations supplying new developments. And in April 2017, the largest competitive water retail market opened for business customers. This new market means that over 1 million businesses, charities, and public sector organisations are no longer restricted from buying water services from their regional monopoly. Instead, they can shop around, renegotiate, and find the right deal for them. So I hope that gives you a picture of the water sector in England and Wales, and demonstrates that the sector obviously is a host to a wealth of data and information, not just about the water and wastewater services they provide, but also how those services interact with the communities, the environment, and how we live. So in 2019, Ofwat published its strategy titled Time to Act Together, Ofwat Strategy. And that title reflects that Ofwat is one of many organisations in the water sector. We set out our ambition for the water sector to provide the very best service for customers, improving the environment and improving life through water, both now and in the future, and the role we will play in achieving it. And our strategy sets out 3 strategic goals, which are set out on the slide. 1, to transform water companies' performance. Secondly, to drive water companies to meet long-term challenges through increased collaboration and partnerships. And thirdly, for water companies to serve wider public purpose, delivering more for customers, society, and the environment. So ultimately, we aim to drive progress in the water sector and to transform water companies' performance. Like other sectors, the water sector faces profound challenges, not least which from climate change, population growth, and questions about companies' performance in some areas. On top of these, customer demands are changing, and we need to make sure that this most vital service keeps pace and remains affordable for all. We must also make sure that customers' diverse needs are met, particularly those in vulnerable circumstances. While there are these challenges, there are also huge untapped opportunities, and water companies are almost uniquely integrated into the communities they serve, with the potential to deliver a positive impact within their local environment. The sector is also deeply invested and reliant on our natural environment. And this is a huge responsibility, but also presents a powerful opportunity to protect and improve our environment. So we set expectations for water companies to meet long-term challenges, such as climate change, population growth, through increased collaboration and partnerships, recognizing the importance of future regulation and the diverse issues the water sector is facing. We also identified in our strategy that technology and new approaches could be key to addressing some of these long-term challenges, with innovation, collaboration, and developing people with new skills, all identified as key components of success. So hopefully you can see from this that data has a huge role to play in the water sector, not just for Ofwat, but for companies operating as monopolies or in the competitive business retail market, along with customer and environmental groups. So in our strategy, we recognise that an open data approach could stimulate innovation and collaboration and encourage new business models and service offerings that can benefit customers. Open data could also improve transparency for customers and the owners of companies and build trust. We reiterated these messages around open data in PR24 and beyond, our initial thinking for the next price review of the 17 monopoly companies we regulate. We set out our expectations for companies to maximise their use of data and digitalisation to keep pace with the digital transformation of the wider economy. In addition, data has a role to play in the effective operation of competitive markets in the water sector. Poor quality market data, such as regarding consumers or consumption or asset data, is a key market friction impeding the development of a more effective business retail market. Our State of the Market report, published in December, sets out our views on this issue. Market participants are taking action to improve the quality of market data, including by developing new data-related performance measures that are now included in the holistic peer comparison reports used to monitor performance. Ofwat considers the business retail market has the power to deliver improved outcomes for customers, society, and the environment. But it's clear that this will require market participants to take action, including stepping up efforts to resolve poor quality data. So given the challenges and opportunities the water sector faces, along with the huge range of outcomes that we are seeking to be delivered, as I've outlined, for customers, for the environment and society, we see key data as being a key enabler for the sector. So during summer 2020, almost completely via MS Teams meetings, we engaged with industry and consumer bodies, Water UK, British Water, CC Water, and other industry regulators to inform our understanding of the different elements that make up a successful industry-wide approach to open data. We also worked with Lisa and her colleagues at the Open Data Institute to develop our thinking. In October last year, we published our first discussion paper about open data in the water industry. It's called H2 Open, A Case for Change. We also published a case study appendix, which included several case studies showing open data and digital solutions from within the water sector. During the engagement we did in preparing the paper, we heard a range of views, and I will try today to provide an overview of what we heard. But I do encourage you to read the discussion paper and the case study appendix if you would like to know more. In such a diverse sector, it's not surprising that we heard a range of views. But there were some commonality of views in areas, and we tried to highlight where this was the case in the paper, and I'll do so today in this presentation. In preparing the paper, we sought to understand the benefits of open data and how it could be used to help address some of the challenges the water sector faces. We reflected on what is already happening within the industry to open up data, the untapped opportunities, and the challenges that need to be overcome to do so. We intended this paper to stimulate a wider discussion about the benefits of open data and how it could be used to address some of the challenges the water sector faces, from climate change, the environment, changing customer demands, and protecting the most vulnerable customers. While the paper primarily focused on the 17 regional monopoly companies, we set out that we consider that the benefits of open data could and should apply to all operators and organisations in the sector. We want to see businesses across the sector and beyond explore the opportunities and benefits that a more open approach to data could deliver. So today I'll touch on the key areas that underpin our thinking and that we set out in the paper. The first one is the case for change. What is the opportunity for open data? Also to shine a light on some of the open data and data sharing activities already underway in the industry. Set out the key enablers we identified for unlocking the best outcomes from open data, and also the high-level expectations that we set for the industry. The enablers and challenges that we heard about during our engagement in preparing H2 Open are not unique to the challenges that other sectors are encountering. And further challenges along with opportunities may arise as open data develops. And I think this is why conferences such as this, highlighting experiences in different sectors, is crucially important, because we can learn from other sectors such as banking, food, transport. As Richard's talk on Tuesday afternoon in the energy sector highlighted, the energy sector has made significant progress in this area. So we're very keen that we learn from these other sectors' experience. So what do we mean by open data? Just like sewers, water pipes, and treatment works, data and the people, processes, and technologies which support it is an asset and part of the critical water industry infrastructure. And as I mentioned, there's lots of data. Together, companies hold large amounts of data assets about the services they provide and their impact, including, but not limited to, operational data, asset data, customer data, and financial data. So we've got a huge variety of data sets in the industry and the sector more broadly. We see open data as presuming that water data should be available and accessible publicly. And where data is closed or only shared between certain parties, this requires justification as to why it should not or cannot be opened. We also see opening data in this way as an important part of how we see public value in the industry being delivered to consumers, wider stakeholders, and society. Extracting insight from this data is critical. The benefits of open data also have the potential to reach beyond the water sector and the supply chain across multiple sectors and to research and development. So I hope I've given you an introduction to the benefits that we see from open data, and indeed how those benefits will be delivered across the sector and beyond. So what are some of the examples of the different types of data that we have in the sector? Like on other industries, companies that generate data do not always come up with the best uses of data. Some of the speakers at this event this week have showcased some examples of this. And we are really keen to ensure that that applies to the water sector as well. To ensure that the most value is gained from industry data, we believe it should be made as open as possible. Getting the most out of open data means adopting a mindset that is open by default, recognizing and managing risks to maximize opportunities. Again, as we've heard this week, the mindset is important. But I wanted to pause briefly on our thinking about limitations or constraints. And we recognize that there are circumstances where data should remain private or can only be shared between certain parties. For example, we need to consider how personal customer data is used and whether use of data may raise issues in terms of security. So this slide sets out a few existing industry examples and shows the breadth of the different types of data that there is within the sector and the different considerations that we will need to apply collectively in considering progressing open data in the sector. So why do we think at Ofwat that this is important? What do we see specifically as the benefits of open data for the water sector, for customers and the environment? As part of our engagement last summer, we worked with stakeholders to identify the potential benefits of open data, and of which there are many, and also many that we're not aware of. We saw these as falling into broadly three categories. First one is driving efficiencies. Secondly, to catalyze innovation. And thirdly, to improve transparency. So increasing efficiency through the use of open data can streamline asset maintenance approaches, improve data quality, and incentivize collaborative working to aggregate data sets and tackle shared challenges. This is a network industry. There is pipes and reservoirs, so data is really critical in terms of operating those networks efficiently. It can also inform better decision-making and enable deeper analysis and insight, which will increase both operational and sector-wide efficiencies. Open data can catalyze innovation, creating opportunities to attract new skills and develop new technologies to the water sector, new business models and services that can enhance the customer experience, environmental quality, and business processes. And finally, we see open data as being key to improving transparency and building trust in water companies. It can open conversations with water customers and allow users of water greater access to information about their local environments. So there is huge untapped potential across the water sector in terms of open data. Not only can it enable companies to deliver increased value for customers and the environment, it also has the potential to generate cross-sectoral innovation and public value. So as I mentioned, the potential benefits and beneficiaries of open data will reach far beyond our industry into the future. And opening data sets in water has a potential users across the wider supply chain, other utility providers, localized infrastructure groups, and citizen scientists. So we're at an early stage of this open data journey. We're seeing examples of really innovative solutions coming out of better use of data across the industry. And there are a number of exciting examples included in our recent report, some of which I've included here on the slide. The ability to detect and resolve sewer defects is increasing as a result of open data and digitalization. Use of artificial intelligence algorithms on large data sets has enabled companies to identify cracks and damage within sewer pipes, cutting down man hours that would previously have been spent reviewing CCTV footage. The use of open banking technologies in conducting customer affordability assessments, as operatives are able to access customer financial information in real time and improve tailored payment plans. Intelligent sewer monitoring can provide early intervention for storm overflow flooding, while open data hacks have produced a wealth of interesting insights from better understanding the sources of fatbergs to modelling the impacts of COVID-19 and predicting future energy demand. We're seeing examples of using mobile phone signals to generate real-time population maps, allowing companies to better predict water consumption hotspots. These are just a few of the examples. If you are interested in more, I really do encourage you to have a look at our case study appendix that we published last October. So I've covered some of the many benefits of open data, and in particular, the outcomes that we want to see from open data. However, achieving open data in a considered and sustainable manner requires more than just data releases. And from our engagement, it was clear that delivering open data will require significant effort, and there are huge opportunities, but there will also be challenges to overcome, as I've mentioned. Further challenges are also likely to be identified as open data develops in the sector. But these are not unique to the experiences in other sectors. And as I've mentioned, we need to learn from the experience in other sectors. But the challenges are real and will need to be worked through. In seeking out opportunities and addressing the challenges, there is great potential for companies to work together to share insights and ideas on how to overcome challenges and those that may be encountered in the future. An example of this is STREAM, which is a collaborative open data initiative looking to address a number of these challenges, involving a number of water companies and other organisations. Through the engagement with stakeholders that we undertook, we identified 3 key enablers for unlocking the best outcomes from open data. We heard different views from different organisations, And as I mentioned, our discussion document sets out the diversities of views that we heard and highlights the areas of commonality. The first of these enablers is a strong data culture and the development of capability and skills. And I know this is something that we've heard about from some of the talks this week. Several companies showed a strong commitment to open data and had undertaken open data initiatives. We observed that these companies also had data strategies and plans in place for maximizing the use of data and analytics within their business, including open data. And these companies were also building and nurturing data and analytics capabilities within their organizations. Strong senior leadership support within the companies for adopting open data and building data capability was also noted. However, there were other companies that were not quite as advanced in terms of their data culture and the development of capability and skills. The second enabler we identified was improved collaboration to open data across the industry. As I mentioned, there are many organizations within the water sector and collaboration is therefore key. All companies recognize that to deliver the best outcomes from open data, collaboration across the industry and more widely is essential. In many instances, companies recognize that they did not individually have all the data necessary to address a particular industry-wide challenge. Equally, many companies recognize that the value to others of open data may be in accessing industry-wide data rather than individual company data. So working together to collect, share, and use data to help address these challenges, improve decision-making, and adapt to changing environments is important. We also consider that working collaboratively can also facilitate the linking and merging of data sets to create large data sets. So collaboration is key to achieving the outcomes. And finally, the third enabler was establishing data infrastructures. All companies raised points around the importance of data infrastructure when we spoke to them. And we've considered data infrastructure to include data sets, the technology, training, and processes that collect, maintain, and use the data to gain insights and solve problems. Some of the factors identified to us in our engagement, which will need to be addressed, include data quality and completeness, common standards, metrics and governance, data platform, and prioritization. So on data quality and completeness, we heard from companies that data used for regulatory purposes is generally in good formats and quality assured, but there remains variability in the quality of data sets across companies more widely. A number of companies also pointed to opening data as a way to resolve known issues in data. One company suggested that external data scientists can identify deficiencies in data and help resolve them. Other companies suggested that while data quality is an ongoing area for improvement, there is in fact value in opening data sets, even if concerns remain about the quality of the data, provided appropriate explanations are included. This could enable external groups to derive insights, or could simply be in response to a recognition that some data sets may be useful, even if not of the best quality or completeness. This particularly applies to historical data sets. Beyond ensuring data quality, comparability across water data sets is also key. As we've heard from other speakers this week, establishing common standards and metrics could allow for easier cross-sectoral comparability, while shared approaches to data governance could allow for easier interoperability and the protection of private data. Most companies supported a shift towards common standards, definitions, and reporting. However, we noted that leaders in open data emphasized that support for commonality should not present a barrier to initial data sharing and opening. Most companies supported the concept of a platform, as it could ensure a coordinated approach in areas such as access rules, standard setting, as well as data governance and ethics. As I mentioned, there is some collaborative effort already underway involving a number of companies in relation to this. On prioritization, companies express that the pace of industry-led standards and platform should not hinder their ability to experiment, open, and access data sets. We welcome this. We heard that encouraging an environment where it is safe to experiment and learn from those experiences, even when they're not successful, is important. And almost all companies expressed a preference for opening data sets incrementally, although different data sets were raised as the potential starting points. We would expect to see strong industry-wide collaboration on this issue, focusing, as I mentioned, on the outcomes that we're seeking to achieve and building on engagement with wider stakeholders. So, what are our expectations of the sector? Are we about to set a regulatory requirement that this all has to be completed tomorrow? No, not at this stage. As I've set out, we understand and have identified the challenges and also the opportunities, and these need to be worked through. So we know that it will take some time to fully implement, and that some companies are more advanced than others in preparing themselves for opening data. We're also by no means the experts. We are learning and developing our thinking like the rest of the industry. Given what we've seen in terms of the progress the industry is making, we are confident that the industry is best placed to deliver open data and has the capability, expertise, and incentives to do so. This is supported by the commitments that the companies have made in Water UK's 2050 Water Innovation Strategy. However, we want to see the water industry keep pace with the wider digital economy, and we want to see measurable progress in establishing the groundwork for open data. We have set out in our publication what we think would be positive indicators of progress by companies, but it is really for the companies themselves to determine how they do this and to take the action necessary. And what about wider industry participants, such as supply chain partners? Some outcomes, such as achieving net zero, may need the sharing or opening of data across the supply chain. In addition to this, the types of innovation we've identified in our publication may come from open access to data by stakeholders outside the industry. So input from a wide range of stakeholders and specialists, including data specialists, which is why I was very pleased to be asked to speak today, will be critical for delivering the outcomes that we have identified that open data can deliver for customers, the environment, and society. And I encourage you all to get involved in the discussion about open data in the water sector. So what is Ofwat's role? We are very clear. We want to ensure that an open and trustworthy data ecosystem in the water sector is established. We want to see the value for customers, communities, and the environment delivered through open data, and we want to help realize those benefits. Now is the time for establishing some of the key foundations for open data, including progressing the industry-wide collaboration initiatives we have seen emerging, and we will evaluate progress in autumn this year. In the future, should we find that little or no progress is being made, we would consider the formal tools we have to ensure the delivery of these goals in future. As we've seen, the energy sector has taken the approach of formal regulatory requirements in relation to open data. We will also continue to support open data through the ways that Ofwat regulates, including supporting open data projects through the Innovation Fund and the expectations that we set during our price control of the 17 monopoly companies. And as I've mentioned, improving data quality and availability is crucial to the effective working of the competitive business retail market. So hopefully that has given you an overview of Ofwat's thinking in this area, the scope and the opportunities for data, open data in particular, to deliver improved outcomes for customers, the environment, and society. And as the speakers this week have shown, open data is crucial to delivering new and exciting data-driven advances across all sectors. But I wanted to conclude by reflecting on what this means for the water sector. And I hope that I've set out today that Ofwat is looking at open data through the lens of what outcomes it can deliver. And that is the lens that we are thinking about, and the basis for our thinking is really being focused on the outcomes that we're seeking. The growing interconnectedness of people, organizations, and technology is changing customer and societal expectations around how services are provided. The water sector needs to maximize the benefits this opportunity presents, and also keep pace with the wider digital economy. Ofwat considers that open data can help to do this and is crucial in order to do this. One of the really exciting things that we won't know for sure, the types of outcomes that will arise from open data. But what we believe is that they have the potential to revolutionize current approaches and to support companies in delivering on ambitious long-term outcomes for customers, society, and the environment. Open data is a challenge for the whole sector to embrace, from companies, us as regulators, and the wider network of organizations and partners across the supply chain. In addition, we will need the help and support of data specialists and other disciplines to achieve these outcomes. So we are excited and optimistic that the sector can deliver open data, and we're excited about the outcomes that it will deliver and the opportunities it presents. We look forward to seeing the progress the industry makes in ensuring that water data is an asset that everyone can access, use, and share. I'm happy to take any questions now.
Brilliant, thanks for that, Anita. That was great. Did you want to stop sharing the presentations? The questions are coming in thick and fast now. So I'll start off with the chair's prerogative, obviously. So yeah. You mentioned the stuff from Richard on Tuesday from the energy sector. So what do you think that the water sector can learn from the journey that the energy sector's been on?
I think there's lots that the sector can learn, and I think this is in particular around those enablers and what is the role of particular enablers such as common standards, metrics, governance, and those sorts of things. And as I mentioned, we set out in the paper, there is a trade-off between waiting until everything is perfect in terms of commonality and standards and releasing data. So I think one of the things that we can learn from the sector is, you know, where do we draw that line? How do we balance those two things, given where the energy sector's at in terms of the progress it's made on some of those key enablers? So I think helping us as a sector to make those trade-offs, I think will be the key thing that we can learn from the energy sector.
Yeah, one of the questions actually come in, it says, do you advocate the easily understood presumed open principles used in the energy sector?
Well, this is something that where we're at the moment is really at the thinking about what are the outcomes that we want to achieve. And as I've said, our starting position is that data should be open and accessible, but we recognize that there are circumstances where that is not possible. So I think it is, for me, it's around being clear about the data and the constraints in releasing it. But certainly, as I've said, we are very clear that our starting position is that the data should be open and accessible.
Yeah, excellent. Thanks for that. So we've got one here from Tim. He says, open and trustworthy is a great strapline that builds well on the ideas being shared this week. So what, in your experience, of where trustworthiness comes in, is it from technology? Is it from the leadership? Is it from behaviours? Or is it from something else?
I think it's from all of those and potentially more as well. And I think for me, this is a really important part of the thinking about what open data can do and what it can help with. I think that's technology, standards, data governance. I think also the mindset as well is really important. And one of the reasons why Ofwat is focusing on the outcomes, I think it's really important to have those outcomes in mind when you are thinking about open data, because that's really what should be driving the decisions that we make. So I think, yes, it is all of those things. As I say, I think it's also a mindset in relation to wanting to deliver better outcomes for customers, and also the mindset of beyond the sector as well. I think this open data presents an opportunity for the water sector to work and to learn from other sectors, but also to build relationships and links with other sectors, because everyone is looking at data, everyone is undertaking some form of data transformation. And I think that provides a great opportunity for the water sector to collaborate with sectors that it potentially hasn't previously.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree with that. I think if we're going to tackle some of the big challenges of the time, like energy, climate change, the environment, then that cross-sector collaboration is key, isn't it?
I think absolutely. And I think also I want to highlight the role of customers, citizen scientists, the public. And I think that's part of the sort of building trust is, there is as society and individuals become, and customer groups and environmental groups build their skills in terms of data, being able for them to be able to access data in relation to the water sector, I think is also a very empowering thing to do, but also helps in building that trust. So I think we also, as we go through this, we want to make sure that it's not just about the regulator, it's not just about us, it's really thinking about who are those potential users and what do we need to do to maximize their trust in using the data.
Yeah, it's great. There's a whole army of citizen scientists out there now. It's great. So there's a question here saying, are you able to share any specific data sets that look most promising for open data in the water sector? So what specific opportunity have you seen in your conversations with others?
Well, I think, as I mentioned, there's a range of views in relation to the data sets, and this is something where we are expecting the industry to really collaborate and identify those data sets. The industry, it's the industry that produces most of the data, the companies. So in terms of, we don't have at this point in time we haven't identified specific data sets. As part of the review that we will be doing in the autumn this year, that will be one of the things that we will be looking at as we review the progress that has been made since we published the paper last October. So I think this is one we would be really interested to hearing views from the companies, but also views from wider stakeholders as well. Where is the demand? What are the data sets that others outside the sector are most interested in seeing being released? And again, I think there's going to be a trade-off here between, what's the demand for data sets, so potentially where's the biggest value in releasing them versus what data sets are in the sort of best shape in terms of being able to release. And so these are the trade-offs that we will need to make as we go through this open data journey.
Yeah, I think that's so right. And we've discussed in the past, haven't we, that sometimes the people within the sector are not always the best ones to know how that data is going to be used for innovation outside. So those views of those external people are going to be used and are really key about the stuff they'd like to see, as well as the stuff that you guys think you want to push out, or the water companies want to push out. So that relationship there, I think, is really key. Cool. So there's another one here about data governance. So how strong a role should Ofwat as a regulator play in data governance for open and shared data from the players in the water industry? So what's your thoughts on that, about how strong a role you should play?
I think this is one that we are still considering. And as the paper sets out, and hopefully I've outlined today, we see a real role for the industry and the companies to collaborate on this. So Ofwat doesn't have in a sector that has monopolies, Ofwat doesn't have a monopoly on expertise or in terms of approaches to this. So I do think this is one, given the sort of multiplicity of organizations in the sector, that this is something that we would hope would be able to be developed collaboratively. And again, I think this is one of the things that we'll be looking to see when we do our review this autumn, is what progress has been made. And these are all the judgments and decisions that we will need to make in light of doing the review. And I wouldn't want to preempt the outcomes of that review. So I think the role for Ofwat, in a way, will depend in terms of what progress has been made. But I think it would be, hopefully we're not in a position where it is solely up to Ofwat, because, as I say, there's a range of organizations in this sector. There will be diversities of views, and if we can find a way collectively to develop some of those data governance standards, I think that would be a better outcome.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because Ofwat's not there to do data governance for all of the water industry, the water industries need to make sure they've got their skills and ability within each of their companies to be able to do that too. And then you come together, don't you, to make it easier. Yes, that links in nicely then to this question about open data relies on data standards across operations, asset, customer, and external to industry. So what is the strategy around the water open data models? Have you got anything in your plans at the moment about how you join the sector together about some of the models on these?
At the moment, we haven't. But again, I think this is, and sorry, this is going to be an answer to a lot of the questions, is that, again, this is one of the things that we will be considering as part of our review. What we wanted to do with the October paper last year was essentially to set out our thinking and really to, as I say, to ground this in the outcomes that we want to see. I think that will then, as we've said, we wanted the industry to make progress. We will conduct a review starting in autumn this year, and that then will provide us with the evidence in order to make some of these decisions about what is our next steps, and indeed what is Ofwat's role going forward. As I mentioned, we're confident that the industry can deliver this, but we want to review progress, and our role may change as we progress. And I think that's where, so apologies, I don't have any definitive answers for these questions, but early in the new year, once we've conducted our review, we'll be better placed to have a greater evidence set to be able to make some of these judgments about our role, and also some of the particular issues that are coming up in terms of hampering progress. And again, I think the starting point should be, what are the challenges, and then think about who's best to overcome them, rather than identifying a role for ourselves first in the absence of understanding what those challenges are.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. I think it's it's what you said earlier in the talk, isn't it? You don't want to let brilliance be the barrier to actually getting data out there. So for some of the data models, it might be actually what you need the water companies to do is to share that data, and then you can see actually they're not using the same data standards, not using the same formats, not using the same data models, and then you can look at those challenges. But it's starting off from that place where the data is out there freely available, and then you can look to the next steps. Yeah, so there's another one here then. So in your opinion, are you able to say which water companies are leading the way in terms of their current approach to open data? That's an unfair question, isn't it? I don't know. Do you choose your favourite child?
Well, I think the challenge with that is there isn't one metric that you can apply to measure progress on open data. And I think that's where, as we set out, that there are those three, and indeed other, but three key enablers for open data. So I think it would be an impossible task to aggregate all that up into to one metric that communicated the range of factors you need to consider in terms of what does good look like. So I don't have an answer to that question, but I think this is where it's important for us to undertake the review. I think it's important that we've articulated those enablers so that we can then look at and see companies' progress across those three. As I mentioned, there's huge diversity in the sector. We've got small companies, we have large companies, we have companies that are water only, we have companies that are water and sewage companies. So there's a lot of diversity, and I think also one of the things we'll need to think about is what is proportionate across, and what does good look like across those different types of companies as well. But I think also, as I set out in my presentation, it's not just about releasing data sets. That is obviously important, but there is these enablers, and part of what we will be looking at is looking at both where are the sort of tangible outputs and outcomes, but equally where are companies at in terms of building that enabling or the foundations. And we will be looking at both of those aspects.
Yeah. And have you seen a shift there in that then with the water companies about being more open to this approach, being more open to the open approach? So, yeah, and I think this has, I mean, the feedback we have had
the paper was published and the conversations that we continue to have, both within the sector and outside the sector, is that there's lots of progress being made and in different places. And I think this is where it's great, and it's great to see that. But as I mentioned, collaboration is key to this, and that partnership working. And so I think what we will be in particular looking at in our autumn review is, yes, where is the progress being made, but where is the whole sector at in terms of making progress. So I think it will be a mixed, it is a mixed picture, and having to then work through how do we then make progress, both in terms of individual companies but sector wide, will be something that we'll be considering as part of the review.
Yeah, you don't really want the competitiveness between water companies to become a barrier to collaboration, because actually you want everybody to maturity in managing their data and openness and the outcomes that's going to come with it to all rise together.
And I think also, and conversations outside the sector as well. I think this is really important as well, and the water sector challenging itself, learning from others, but also seeking expertise and insights from outside the sector and across different disciplines will be really important as well. As I mentioned, I think data is one of the things that we can say clearly. Every single organisation, whether you're privately owned, publicly owned, a regulated utility or not, everyone is grappling with these issues. So that presents lots of opportunities to both challenge ourselves as a sector, but also to learn from others as well, and maybe change the way we're thinking about certain things. New ideas, innovation. I think that's something that's really important as well, is increasing innovation and getting new ideas, new voices into the sector will be a key benefit of open data.
Yeah, definitely. That join up across sector is going to be an interesting outcome from this, isn't it? Yeah, so it's a question which I can answer actually, because I think I'll put you in touch with some of them. But it says, has Ofwat engaged with ONS Data Science Campus, the ONS Data Quality Hub, and the CDDO Data Standards Authority? So
yeah, yes,
I know I'll put you in touch with some of those people. So yeah,
we have engaged with those organisations, and are seeking to engage further with those organisations and other organisations as we progress this work.